These are the 10 most jaw-dropping vintage aircraft collections in all of Hollywood. And as the list goes on, the planes get bigger, rarer, and more dangerous. Like the heavy metal rock god who flies a World War I triplane 50 feet off the deck for fun. The movie star who flew his own $4 million Mustang in Top Gun, Maverick. And the Hollywood legend who walked away from a crash landing on a golf course with a shattered pelvis, a broken back, and a broken ankle. Before we get started, quick bit of context. When we say vintage aircraft, we're talking warbirds from World War II and Korea, pre-1980 civil classics, prop-driven airliners, and early swept-wing jets. And these things are not cheap. An airworthy P-51 Mustang costs around $4 million. A Supermarine Spitfire will set you back over $3 million. Even a humble Boeing Stearman biplane starts at around $130 grand. But that's just the purchase price. The real money goes to specialized mechanics, high-octane aviation fuel, and massive insurance premiums. And flying these things is nothing like flying a modern Gulfstream. You're wrestling torque, managing liquid-cooled engines that can detonate on you, and landing on tail draggers with zero forward visibility. These are the 10 celebrities who voluntarily take that on. Let's count it down. Number 10, Jimmy Buffett. Yeah, the Margaritaville guy. And Buffett wasn't just a passenger. He was a fully rated commercial pilot with multi-engine, instrument, and seaplane ratings. But his obsession wasn't speed. It was amphibious flying boats, planes that can land on the open ocean. His crown jewel was a 1955 Grumman HU-16 Albatross that he named Hemisphere Dancer. 96-foot wingspan, twin Wright R-1820 radial engines, deep V-shaped hull. Originally built for the US Navy for open ocean search and rescue, this thing could take off in 4-foot seas using rocket boosters, and Buffett used it to island hop through the Caribbean for decades. He later added a rare 1939 Grumman G-21 Goose, another amphibious flying boat, to the collection, and the Albatross became legendary in aviation folklore in 1996. Buffett was taxiing on the water in Jamaica with Bono from U2 and his family in the back, when local authorities saw a World War II military aircraft pulling up to the shore and assumed it was a drug smuggling plane. So they opened fire, peppered the fuselage with bullet holes. Nobody got hit, and Buffett, being Buffett, turned the whole thing into a song called Jamaica Mistaka. The Palm Beach airport even named a departure procedure after him, the Buffett one, because he had so much influence in the aviation world. Man, that's wild. Number 9, Gary Newman, the Cars guy. The Our Friends Electric guy, the godfather of synth pop, also in his spare time a certified aerobatic display instructor who flew a World War II warbird in formation 50 feet off the ground for a living. In 1984, Newman bought a 1943 North American Harvard T-6 Texan. This plane actually served with the RAF in the lead up to D-Day, and Newman did something that made warbird purists lose their minds. He painted it as a Japanese Zero. Then he teamed up with a Royal Navy pilot named Norman Lees, formed a display team called Radial Pair, and spent years flying synchronized aerobatics across the European airshow circuit. Newman himself described it as, quote, fast and furious with no margin for error, and eventually that no margin for error caught up with him. After watching multiple close flying friends die in airshow crashes, and after his own brother was in a serious accident, Newman quit. He said, quote, I don't have a photograph in my house of my flying friends where everyone is still alive. Man, that's heavy. Number 8, David Gilmour, the lead guitarist for Pink Floyd. And in the early 90s, while he was selling out stadiums, Gilmour casually went out and bought himself a Supermarine Spitfire Mark 16. Let me repeat that. He bought an actual airworthy Battle of Britain fighter. These things are worth over $3 million today, and owning one is one thing. What Gilmour did next was insane. He founded a whole aviation company called Intrepid Aviation, based at North Weald Airfield in England, just to house and operate his vintage fleet. Then he started leasing his planes and pilots out to movies. His company eventually supplied aircraft and crews for over 80 major film productions, including Steven Spielberg's Band of Brothers. Eventually, though, he admitted the whole thing had stopped being fun. Quote, gradually over a few years, Intrepid Aviation became a business, because you have to be businesslike about it. Suddenly I found instead of it being a hobby and me enjoying myself, it was a business, and so I sold it. He kept one, quote, nice old biplane for himself, the rock star version of early retirement. Number 7, Brad Pitt. And yes, this is a real thing. Around 2013, while Pitt was filming the World War II tank drama Fury, he went so deep into the research that he developed a full-blown obsession with wartime machinery. First, he bought a Soviet T-54 tank, an actual tank, from his movie World War Z. But then, reportedly, he dropped around $3.3 million on a Supermarine Spitfire, the most iconic British fighter of World War II. Now here's the thing. Flying a Spitfire is not like flying anything Pitt had flown before. He used to fly his then-wife Angelina Jolie's Cirrus SR-22, which is a modern computerized tricycle gear airplane. A Spitfire is a 1,000-plus horsepower tailwheel fighter with a V12 Merlin engine that blocks your forward view during taxi and torque that will flip you on your back if you firewall the throttle wrong. So Pitt flew to Oxford, England and enrolled at the Boltby Flight Academy, which specializes in teaching civilian pilots how to not die in a Spitfire. Full method actor energy. Number 6. Bruce Dickinson, the operatic lead singer of Iron Maiden. And this guy, on paper, is the most qualified pilot on this entire list. Airline transport pilot license, over 6,500 hours, type ratings in the Boeing 737, 757, and 747. He was literally a captain for Australis Airlines before they went under in 2011. He used to fly Iron Maiden's own customized Boeing 747, nicknamed Ed Force One, to their concerts around the world. After Australis folded, he founded his own aircraft maintenance company in Wales, now called Cairdav, which services commercial airliners like the Boeing 767 and the Airbus A320. But all of that is just his day job. What Dickinson really loves is the hairiest, scariest flying imaginable. He owns a Second World War-era Booker-Youngman biplane, which was the basic trainer for the Luftwaffe in the 1930s. He owns an SA Bulldog, and the centerpiece, a flying replica of a World War I Fokker Doctor I triplane. The plane the Red Baron flew. Early WWII triplanes had almost zero aerodynamic stability. You have to physically manhandle the controls the entire flight just to keep it from departing. Dickinson flies this thing with the Great War Display team in the UK at around 120 miles an hour, just 50 feet off the ground, dogfighting other vintage planes for airshow crowds. In his own words, the propeller slipstream can, quote, flip the aircraft upside down during maneuvers. Bro is singing Run to the Hills on Saturday and chasing a Sopwith camel through the trees on Sunday, and there's a lot more coming, like the Klingon from Star Trek with a collection of Korean War fighter jets, the Super Bowl champion tight end who became a full-time warbird pilot, the actor who owns 4 engine airliners and parks them at his house, and the #1 spot, which goes to a Hollywood legend with possibly the most intense vintage fleet on the planet. But first, number 5, Michael Dorn, Worf from Star Trek. And while everybody else on this list is flying propellers, Dorn has exclusively collected early military jets, Cold War kerosene burners. His words, quote, I live for on-ramps. He started out in a Cessna 172, got bored, moved up through a twin engine, then a Cessna Citation business jet, then started buying decommissioned fighters, a Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star, a Casa Seda, a North American Saberliner, and the crown jewel, a North American F-86 Sabre, America's first swept-wing transonic jet fighter, the one that dominated MiG-Alley in the Korean War. Restored F-86 go for $500,000 to $1 million, and the fuel burn and maintenance on a turbojet fighter will eat your bank account alive. Dorn flew his Sabre on the airshow circuit until it got damaged by pyrotechnics at a Florida airshow. And here's the best part, even after owning all that, he's still not satisfied. His dream airplane is a Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, a Mach 2 interceptor that pilots nicknamed the Missile with a Man in it, because its wings are so tiny it has almost no glide capability. That's a Klingon with a need for speed. Number 4, Tom Cruise. And yeah, the guy who filmed Top Gun is unsurprisingly a ridiculously qualified pilot in real life. Private license in 1994. Commercial single-engine, multi-engine, helicopter, and instrument ratings. Plus FAA letters of authorization to fly his P-51 Mustang and a Czech L-39 Albatross jet trainer. But the specific plane he owns is wild. In 2001, operating through his firm Valhalla Aviation, Cruise bought one of the rarest P-51 variants in the world. Not a standard D model, an F6K, serial 44-1284. One of only 2 flyable F6Ks left on the planet. It's a photo reconnaissance variant of the P-51K, Slightly different canopy shape, different 11-foot Aero Products propeller instead of the standard Hamilton standard unit. Originally built in Dallas in 1944. Served with the U.S. Army Air Forces and later the Civil Air Patrol. Went through a 15-year restoration, won Best P-51 at Oshkosh in 1998, and then Cruise bought it. And this is the plane he flies in the emotional final flight sequence of Top Gun Maverick. That Mustang that goes screaming across the desert at the end of the movie, that's his actual plane. He flew it himself on camera. He used to have Kiss Me Kate painted on the nose as a tribute to ex-wife Katie Holmes. These days it wears the World War II livery of the 334th Fighter Squadron, the Fighting Eagles. Current market value, around $4 million. And Cruise reportedly pays to have the Mustang ferried to his international film sets so he can stay current and log hours during downtime. That's obsessive level commitment. Number 3, and this one's a curveball. Russ Francis, NFL Pro Bowl tight end, Super Bowl champion with the San Francisco 49ers. You do not expect to find an NFL Hall of Famer on a warbird list. But Francis was the real deal. After retiring from football, he dove headfirst into vintage aviation and ended up owning a North American P-51 Mustang, $4 million of World War II fighter, 1,500 horsepower liquid-cooled Rolls-Royce 512. Demands constant monitoring of coolant temperatures and manifold pressure or the engine will detonate on you. Requires absolutely precise rudder inputs on takeoff or the torque will yaw you off the runway. A tight end who spent his 20s getting hit by linebackers, in his 50s and 60s mastering one of the most demanding warbirds ever built. And he wasn't just a collector, he was a flight instructor, a highly respected high-hour aviator who dedicated his post-football life to preserving warbird heritage. Tragically, Francis died in an aviation accident in late 2023. Not in the Mustang, he was flying a Cessna 177 Cardinal when it crashed. But his legacy in the warbird community is massive. Number 2, John Travolta. And Travolta is on a different planet from everyone else on this list. While most celebrities collect single-engine fighters, Travolta collects 4-engine vintage airliners, plural. He holds 17 type ratings including the Boeing 747, the 707, multiple Gulfstreams, and the Airbus A380-17. He is officially recognized as an ambassador of aviation. He also lives at Jumbo Lair Aviation Estates in Florida, a private residential air park with a runway long enough to land heavy jets. So Travolta literally parks his vintage Boeing 707 at his front door, drives his Mercedes right under the wing. His flagship for decades was that 707-138B, built in 1964, originally delivered to Qantas Airways, registration N707JT. Travolta restored the whole thing in authentic original Qantas red and white livery and flew it globally as an ambassador for the airline for years. Then in 2017, he donated it to an aviation museum in Australia. The logistics of that alone were crazy. He had to get retired Qantas engineers involved just to recertify a 50-year-old 4-engine airliner for the ferry flight all the way across the Pacific. But he didn't stop there. In late 2024, Travolta made headlines across the aviation world again. His company acquired one of the last flyable Lockheed Super Constellations on the planet. That's the iconic triple-tail propliner with 4 massive Wright R3350 radial engines, the absolute peak of 1950s propeller-driven passenger aviation, from a struggling museum in Kansas City, registration N6937C. His maintenance crew ran all 4 engines shortly after the acquisition, meaning one of the most complex prop airliners ever built is about to fly again thanks to him. He's also had a Soko G2 Galeb jet trainer in the collection. That's not a hobby, that's a museum with a pilot. And that brings us to number 1, Harrison Ford, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Rick Deckard, and the absolute gold standard of celebrity vintage aviation. Here's the thing about Ford. He didn't even get his pilot's license until he was 53 years old. He tried to learn when he was younger but couldn't afford it. $15 an hour was too much. Then his career took off, he made some money, and he went back and finished what he started. And once he did, he built one of the most eclectic and genuinely demanding vintage fleets in private hands. Let's walk through it. He owns a 1929 Waco 10 taper wing biplane, a 1929 design. Ford himself has called this plane a source of, quote, frustration and consternation, because the Waco has a short-coupled landing gear and hypersensitive controls that will ground loop you, meaning spin you sideways during landing, if you look at it wrong. He owns a de Havilland DHC-2 Beaver, the legendary Canadian bush plane, powered by a Pratt & Whitney Wasp Junior radial engine. He actually flies this plane every year at the world's biggest fly-in, the EAA AirVenture Oshkosh, giving free rides to young aviation enthusiasts. He owns an Aviat Husky and a Bell 407 helicopter, which he has personally used in real mountain search and rescue operations in Wyoming. And he owns a World War II-era Ryan PT-22 Recruit, the primary U.S. Army Air Corps trainer. Which brings us to March 2015. Ford is flying his Ryan PT-22 out of Santa Monica Airport. He's at low altitude just after takeoff when the carburetor metering jet fails. Total loss of engine power. He's too low to turn back to the runway. Below him is a densely populated neighborhood. And with probably 30 seconds to decide, Ford does exactly what a master airman does. He spots a golf course, aims the dying plane at the fairway, and puts it down. He survives the crash with a shattered pelvis, a broken back, a shattered ankle, and a laceration on his head. At 72 years old, and here's the unbelievable part, he rebuilds that exact plane, the PT-22, and he's still flying it, even after subsequent runway incursions at other airports that got him into hot water with the FAA. He did the remedial training, took his medicine, and went right back up. That is not a hobbyist. That is a man who accepts that these machines will try to kill you and chooses to fly them anyway. 1,700 hours of flight time, a private fleet that spans 90 years of aviation history, and a track record that includes both real-life rescues and a survived crash that should have killed him. Harrison Ford is number one, and it's not close. So that's the list. 10 celebrities who put their fortunes, their bodies, and in some cases their lives into preserving some of the most important flying machines in history. Which collection would you take if you could only pick one? Travolta's airliner fleet? Cruise's rare F6K Mustang? Ford's Waco? Let us know. And fly safe out there.